Hey book nerds, welcome to my channel. So August was a really good reading month for me. I read 23 books in total, which is actually insane. I completed 2 readathons, so I took part in Thrillerathon. In fact, 3 readathons. Took part in Thrillerathon, Fairy Taleathon, and the Magical Readathon. And for the Magical Readathon, I actually ended up doing all the 22 prompts that I discussed in my initial Magical Readathon video, which I'll link down below, which is insane. There's also a blog post down below, because I'm not going to do it now, where I talk about the subjects I did and all the books that I read for them, so I'll link that in the description. I will also link my mid-month wrap-up and my Thrillerathon wrap-up, so those two videos and this one are all of my wrap-ups for August. Yeah, so I quit my retail job forever, hopefully, on the 25th of August, and after that my reading just exploded. I think it was a weight off my mind, to be honest. So yeah, it was a really good reading month. I'll go through the ratings that I gave. My lowest rating was 2.5 stars, and I gave 2 books that. I had 4 3-star reads and 4 3.5 star reads. I had 8 4-star reads, 3 4.5 star reads, and 1 5-star read, which is amazing. So that won't add up quite right because there's some books that I haven't rated, which I'll go through when I get to them. But in general, I think the majority I gave were above 3.5 stars or 3.5 or higher, which is fantastic. I had loads of 4-star reads and a new 5-star read, which is amazing because I do not give 5 stars lightly. Sadly, the first book I have to start this video with is not a high point, and that is What We Saw at Night by Jacquelyn Mitchard. This I listened to on audiobook. It's only about an 8-hour audiobook. This has been on my TBR for a long time. This is one of my 2.5 star reads. This is about a group of 3 people, 3 teenagers, who have got XP, which stands for xenoderma something pigmentosa, I think. And this is a disease where you can't go out in sunlight because your skin doesn't produce what it needs to protect against sunlight, so you will just die. So they can only go out at night. These teenagers started doing parkour at night when they hang out together, and whilst doing parkour they see what appears to be a murder. This sounds a lot better than it actually is. So this is really clumsily written. It's just not very interesting. There's lots and lots of scenes when nothing happens, and even listening to it as an audiobook on like 1.75 speed, there were large periods of time where I was just bored. The Goodreads reviews for this are pretty bad, and it's kind of understandable. And the worst part is it ends on a cliffhanger, so I was tempted to pick up the second audiobook, but I just read what happened on Goodreads instead because I didn't want to, even though it's not a lot of time, I didn't want to devote that time to reading the sequel. So this is really disappointing because I've literally had it on my reading list for about 6 years, probably longer, and it just wasn't very good. The main issues are just that it does drag, and it's just not very interesting, which is a shame because it's really cool to read about the disease, and there's a lot of interesting elements that could have been put to better use if it was a different story. But sadly it just feels like a bit of a waste. There's also a romance in this which I really did not like, just because the guy was kind of bland and uninteresting, and that takes up a lot of space in the plot as well, and I didn't care. The next book I read was Mooncakes. This is a graphic novel. This is by Wendy and Suzanne Walker. This I got from NetGalley. It's an ARC. It's one of their Read Now ARCs, so if you have a NetGalley account you can just get it. This was so cute. I gave this 4 stars. It's about a witch who is on the cover there, and she has this non-binary werewolf friend who moves back to their town after being away for a while, but mysterious things are going on in their town, and it's just a really cute story. It's got a lot of great representation. I will link my blog review down below. I go into a lot more detail about the specific rep and the plot and everything in that. But yeah, this was just really cute. It wasn't perfect, which is why it's not a 5-star read, but if you want an October themed graphic novel, this is like spot on for a cute Halloween read, and I'm really glad I read it. There's definitely some elements in here that make me want to buy it for my friends because I know they'll really love it. So yeah, it's just a really cute time. The next book I read was a reread, and that is Sea Change by Cann. This, I think I put it in my summer recommended reads. I pretty much reread this every summer. This is a contemporary. I gave this 4 stars, and it is about a girl who befriends this new girl at her school, and this new girl's really wealthy and kind of like, she's gorgeous and she's spoilt and she's a really dynamic person. So our main character befriends her and then gets invited to go on holiday with her for 6 weeks to this, I think it's a Mediterranean island. I could be wrong about the location. But she goes with her, but once she gets there, their friendship kind of takes a downward turn, and then there's this hot boy she sees on holiday, and these books are pure indulgent. There's a whole series of them and they're all set in different places, but they are perfect holiday reads if you just want something that's light, and they're not even that fluffy because Cann actually writes really realistic contemporaries in terms of characters, and they're very British. I don't know how they'd read to an American audience, but they are very British, and they're quite an accurate representation, I think, of the general school experience and what it's like to be a teenager in Britain. But yeah, there's loads of like long descriptions of like walking along the beach and like getting ready to go out for a lovely meal, and then the food, and they're not going to be for everyone, but I really enjoy them, and it always puts me in a feel good mood to read this. The next book I read was A Blade So Black by L. McKinney. This, I really wanted to love this. I've been on my most anticipated reads from 2018 for ages, and I got it for Christmas and I was super happy to get it. It's a gorgeous book, it's absolutely beautiful, and it's like Black Alice in Wonderland meets Buffy, and I gave it 3 stars out of 5, which I don't know if that's too generous, but I think it feels right for me. This is just really badly written and there's no other way around it. It's got quite a lot of creativity and there's some really interesting things that could have been done with this, but the writing is like, it reads like a Wattpad book, and I don't mean that, well, I do mean it as an insult because clearly I'm saying it as an insult, but like, just the structure of the story is so basic. It's kind of just like, I feel like I'm being too mean, but it feels like someone who wrote their first book, and it follows such a stereotypical structure for writing a first book of this kind. So it starts with like an action scene, and then there's a time skip, and there's another time skip, and there's another action scene, and then there's scenes of her at school, and then there's an action scene, and then she's at school, and there's an action scene, and then the plot kicks off, and then there's a birthday drama, and like, it just hits a lot of notes that I've seen before, and the writing itself I found really hard to get into. I also didn't expect it to actually directly reference Buffy, which it does several times, which I found really kind of off-putting because it pulls me out of the story, because like, a character's described as looking like Spike but 20 years younger, and that's just really bad writing in my opinion, because then you just picture Spike from Buffy and you're not actually getting any writing description or effort put into describing how this character looks. So yeah, I've been really harsh on this. There was some really great stuff in it. Like I said, the representation was interesting, it was really good, there's a lot of creativity, but it wasn't what I hoped for, and it's such a shame because I really did want to love this. After that, I picked up another reread, and that is Diving In by Cann. So this is the same author as the other book that I talked about. This is another contemporary romance. This one's a bit more intense. It's a series of 3 books, and it's about this girl called Cole, and she's 16, and while swimming she meets this boy, Art, and she falls for him really hard, but she's inexperienced and he's been a bit of a playboy and he's slept with loads of people, and he's kind of pressuring her towards having sex with him, and she wants to, but she doesn't know if it's the right thing to do, and it's kind of just a really good exploration of sexuality. These books are surprisingly deep, all 3 of them. They cover quite intense topics at times, and I think they do it really well, and there's a lot of great discussion about emotions. These are actually, I would consider, perfect books to kind of learn about sex from as a 16-year-old or a 15-year-old or whatever, because it does a really good job of tackling the emotions involved, but in a way that's not preachy, and it feels genuine. And it also doesn't dismiss the fact that sometimes people just really want to have sex, and that's not a bad thing. And yeah, this is really enjoyable. I gave it 4 stars, I don't know if I said. But I would really recommend the series, particularly for teenagers if you haven't read it. It's a really interesting set, and they're all really quick reads as well. They're quite short and easy to, they flow really easily. But yeah, Kate Conn's just a really good author when it comes to tackling these issues, and I really recommend her. This book I read is another super short one, and that is The Test by Sylvain Neuvel. I'm not sure how you say that. This I gave 4 stars to. It is only, I think it's 67 pages on my Kindle. I think it's longer actually, I think it's like 100 and something maybe. So it's super short, and I don't want to say a lot about it, but essentially it's about this man taking a citizenship test to become become a United Kingdom citizen. But it's sort of set in the future, and I'm not going to say anything more than that because it's so short that to say anything more about the plot would be to give away too much in my opinion. I went into this almost completely blind, and I'm so glad I did. It was such a great experience. It's just such an intense read, and I wasn't expecting to like it. Well, I was expecting to like it, but I'm surprised by how much I liked it because it's not usually my kind of thing. It's the kind of thing I wouldn't typically pick up, but I'm so glad I did because it really was an experience like no other, and I definitely recommend it. I don't know if I recommend buying it because it is so short, and I don't think it's the kind of thing that I would reread a lot, but if you can get it from the library or get it cheap, then definitely pick it up because I'm so happy I read it, and it's just such a fantastically written story. The next book I read is another pleasant surprise, and that is Truly Devious by Maureen Johnson. I actually wasn't expecting to read this month, but I needed a book with a map in it that wasn't an epic fantasy, and I found out that this one has a map in it, so I was like, perfect, I will reread it. This I gave 4.5 stars to. This is such a good book. It's about this girl, Stevie, who starts at this academy, and this academy basically recruits students who have particular niches, so they're geniuses but in a specific area, and it encourages them to do a project and take classes about surrounding this area. So they only take about 25 students I think each year, and at this academy there was a kidnapping and a murder that took place years and years and years ago, and Stevie's special interest is true crime, and she's like an expert in all kinds of unsolved cases, and she gets taken on basically with her intention being that she's going to solve this crime, and then someone gets murdered in the present day, and it's super interesting. I'm not going to say anything more than that. This was so well written. I absolutely adored Stevie as a character. She's quickly become one of my absolute favourite female characters of all time. And it was just so funny. I rarely read a book that makes me laugh, but the writing style of this was just fantastic, and I loved it so much. I cannot wait to pick up the sequel. I'm literally gonna order it now, because I just want to read it so badly because I love the way it ended. I will say, yeah, this is a series. I can see a lot of people being annoyed if you read it and expect a conclusion by the end, but I knew it was a series, so it didn't bother me that nothing was really solved by the end. But do be aware of that because particularly with mysteries you kind of expect answers, so I can see that being a problem. But yeah, it was just, I just loved it so much. I loved everything about it, and I really hope that the sequel is as good, because if it is, then this could quickly become one of my favourite series ever. And the final book I read was Goblet of Fire. This I listened to as an audiobook. I'm not giving these ratings because I'm rereading all the Harry Potter books with the Time Turner book club. I love the 4th one. I think it's the first where it really deviates significantly from the movies, and that makes it really interesting to read. There's a lot of interesting character stuff that I didn't remember from the last time I read it. So in the books, for example, Harry actually does quite want to be the Hogwarts champion, and I thought that was really interesting compared to how he is in the film, where he really doesn't want the glory, and that's kind of how I associate his character. But in the book, he's dreaming about it. And yeah, I just loved it. This is a longer audiobook, so I did switch a little bit between reading it physically and reading it as an audiobook, just because I read faster than I can listen to audiobooks, and they're getting longer and longer. But I'm really looking forward to reading Order of the Phoenix again, because I don't really remember anything about Order of the Phoenix, so that'll be really interesting. And yeah, I'm just really enjoying rereading these. So yeah, so that is all of the books that I read in August. I hope you had a fantastic reading month. Let me know if you've read any of these, if you have any opinions about them. Let me know what you've been reading, if you've read anything particularly interesting that you think that I might like. That's always useful. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up. It helps me out massively. And I hope to see you next time.